Hello viewers, this is YouTube channel Lex Consilium Foundation and the playlist Inse I am Major General Neelendra Kumar talking to Senior Advocate Sudhish Pai, whose book Legends in Law is widely read, referred, and appreciated. This he has titled it Legends and Law, Our Great Forebears. And at the end of this video, in the description portion, you can see the title cover of the book and also where is it available? This book in hardcover has got more than 678 pages and it's available online. Now, Sudhishji, talking to you and proceeding further about the book,
Yes.
I come to Sir Lawrence Jenkins, which has been covered in your book. Now, he had been the Chief Justice of both Bombay and Calcutta High Courts. That was not something very ordinary. And he's also said to have revised and recast the Civil Procedure Code of 1882. I would like you to bring out to the listeners, to the audience, that why was he respected so much?
Good afternoon. Sir Lawrence Jenkins is considered perhaps the greatest English judge who sat in India and one of the most distinguished of Chief Justices down the history. Sir Lawrence Jenkins is considered perhaps the greatest English judge who came to India and one of the most distinguished of Chief Justices in any High Court. He was great both as a man and as a judge. And he has the distinction, as you pointed out, of being the Chief Justice of two premier courts, both Bombay and Calcutta. In fact, he came down from England in 1896 as a judge of the Calcutta High Court. In 1899, he was sent as Chief Justice of the Bombay High Court, where he occupied that position for 10 years, 1899 to 1909. Jenkins was Chief Justice of the Bombay High Court. And that's considered the turn of the century and a great period for reform in Bombay. Chief Justice Jenkins was primarily responsible for the Indian bar coming to its own. It is said that the bar, the Indian lawyers, received great encouragement, and some of our greatest lawyers, the Indian lawyers of Bombay of those times, came to their own, really flowered during the Chief Justiceship of Jenkins. And the original side, as you know, Bombay and Calcutta have the demarcation of original side and appellate side. The original side, which was dominated almost completely by English barristers, was opened up to the Indian bar during the time of Lawrence Jenkins. You mentioned about the Civil Procedure Code. Yes, when he was Chief Justice of Bombay, apart from the Chief Justiceship, he had quite a few other commitments, which included his being a member of the committee that was entrusted with the task of revising the Civil Procedure Code, and the efforts of that committee fructified into the Civil Procedure Code of 1908, which is still the Civil Procedure Code that governs the civil procedure. So that was Lawrence Jenkins, and in 1909 he stepped down as Chief Justice of the Bombay High Court, went back to England. I think he was in the India office, but that was only for a few weeks, if I am not mistaken, not more than a month. He was then sent as Chief Justice of Calcutta at the instance of the then Viceroy, though the Secretary of State for India was keen to retain him in the India office. But the British government felt that, 1909 is very close to 1905, when you had the Bengal partition.
Yes.
and Bengal was really seething, and it was believed that Lawrence Jenkins perhaps was the fittest person to soothe the wounds in Bengal, which he really did. So he came down in April 1909 as Chief Justice of Calcutta. That was a period where there was a lot of resentment against the British, but Lawrence Jenkins was so great a judge who had every quality of a judge that the public, the litigants, and the lawyers alike were confident both of his integrity, impartiality, objectivity, and competence. So you may have all this, but you may not have
Yes.
equipment and competence, which again would be a flaw. You may have all the equipment, but you may not have the temperament, which again can be very dangerous.
Yes.
So a combination of both this is what we ideally look for, both equipment and integrity and impartiality. Lawrence Jenkins was one of those who had all these qualities in abundance. It was exhibited on the bench both in Calcutta and Bombay. And in Bombay, he did one more thing. The official judiciary, the lower judiciary was also very slack in those days. It was Jenkins as Chief Justice who really buckled up the whole thing. He would visit the districts, visit the courts in the Mafusal, and the district judiciary. The Mafusal judiciary was also toned up, and a standard was attained.
Thank you. The name of Sir Lawrence Jenkins is also talked about for the case of Amrit Bazar Patrika. Now, would you like to tell the audience as to what was the relevance and importance of this case?
Amrit Basar Patrika case was a full bench over which Chief Justice Lawrence Jenkins presided, and it included the great Sir Ashutosh Mukherjee, also a companion judge in that case. This was a contempt matter, criminal contempt, initiated against the Amrit Bazar Patrika, in one of those leading
Leading newspapers.
in those days. And perhaps I think I'm not very sure whether Amrit Bazar Patrika continues even today,
Yes,
though it may
yes.
not have the same halo around it.
Yes.
Proceedings were initiated against Motilal Ghosh as well as Tarik Kanti Ghosh.
Yes.
One was the owner, the other was the publisher and printer. Against one, the notice was discharged, but against the other, the notice was taken up and the case taken up. A full bench of Chief Justice Jenkins, Justice Stephen, and Justice Mukherjee heard the matter. It's, of course, one of those great criminal contempt cases which has still the law in India. And Lawrence Jenkins, speaking for the full bench, laid down the propositions that criminal contempt is not just a matter, a technical matter. You don't initiate and proceed with a contempt case for technicalities.
Yes.
What is important is that you must establish that something very substantial has been done or would happen that would interfere with the due course of proper administration of justice. So ultimately, criminal contempt is not for any technical reasons, not to protect judges as persons, but to protect the judicial process, the integrity of the administration of justice. So this was the great proposition that Sir Lawrence Jenkins laid down, and that has been approved by the Supreme Court in, if I'm not wrong, in P.C. Sen. P.C. Sen was, Chandra Sen was Chief Minister of Bengal, West Bengal. So some matter against him. This proposition of law that Jenkins laid down in Amrit Bazar Patrika was approved by the Supreme Court many, many years later. So that's
the printer and publisher you have indicated in your book of Amrit Bazar Patrika was Tarit Kanti
Kanti Ghosh.
and
Yes.
he was represented by a brilliant consul of that time, P. Chakravarti. You have made a
Chakravarti. Yes.
special mention of that. So
Yes.
I'm sure
Yes.
this would interest the. Uh,
Chakravarti was one of the leading lawyers of those days,
yes,
and he represented Dalip Kanti Ghosh.
yes,
He was also, I mean, that reminds me that he was also briefed. When we talk of C.R. Das, maybe we
yes.
have, he was also briefed to defend Aravindo in the
Okay,
well-known Alipur bomb case.
yes,
But I don't know for what reason, but it seems he didn't continue. He gave up that brief shortly after he accepted it. And it is then that C.R. Das came into the picture and came into his own. So this was the great Chakravarti, who was a
correct.
leader of the bar of the criminal side.
Yes. Thank you.
Before I speak of Sir Ashutosh, just another line about Lawrence Jenkins.
Yes,
There was
yes,
another judgment of his in the Calcutta High Court, where I think Howrah gang case,
yes,
where a number of youth were accused of conspiracy, trying to wage a war against the government, against the king. It is in that famous case that Chief Justice Jenkins laid down that, association of people, youngsters, whether in school or in the village, they're coming together for gymnastics, for music, for exercise. All that is an ordinary incident of village life or school life and can never be regarded as conspiracy or waging war against the king. I think this is a very, very salutary
yes,
judgment, and it should still hold good even today
yes.
because
It will continue to guide the
it's
generation
timeless.
of law
Yes, yes. So
professionals.
that's
Yes,
another very important
yes.
aspect of Sir Lawrence Jenkins, who ultimately, after retirement, sat in the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council when
Okay.
after he stepped down as Chief Justice of Calcutta.